Thank you for your patience as it took me a little bit to get on today, but I'm excited to talk with you. And thank you all for also being here, um, on a day where that's like not the norm. So I am trying something a little bit new. So I just want to double check that my settings are correct. I want to make sure that my audio is working properly. It looks like it is. All right, fabulous. So, what I wanted to talk with you today about is the big things clients need to know and feel before they're going to feel comfortable booking you. And the first thing I want all of us to know is that when we are considering the consultation process, the inquiry process, we may get an inquiry, but that does not guarantee that we're going to get a consultation. Most of the inquiries that we get are not going to move to consultation because a lot of the inquiries that we get are not necessarily as serious as we desire them to be. So, in our eyes, an inquiry feels very serious, like, oh my gosh, somebody's super interested in my services. But a lot of the time, what an inquiry actually serves as is an opportunity just to get information. Their information gathering. That's part of the buying decision making process. But that doesn't mean that that information gathering situation of reaching out to you and within the inquiry process is going to guarantee that they'll move to a consultation. However, if somebody does move to a consultation, there are a lot of things to keep in mind that will get them to that point of the consultation and then will make them feel like, all right, this is a no-brainer that I work with this individual, kind of finances aside, right? So I think the first thing we need to know about consultations in general is that a lot of the time we label them as sales calls, and technically, like, are they sales calls? Yes, I guess. But the way that I think about consultations is that when somebody it has signed up for a consultation, they're signing up to connect with us. So they've consumed our content, they've read our welcome guide, they've taken the time to submit an inquiry and answer the questions on there. And then they're getting on a consultation call, not necessarily to be sold to, but to be connected with, because they already have all the information that they would need to make a buying decision, to make an investment decision. The consultation really serves as an opportunity for connection for them to say to themselves, okay, I feel comfortable with this individual, right? And the same is true for you, where you, as the wedding photographer, are getting onto the consultation to make sure that you are a good fit for them personality wise. And it may seem weird to consider that. It may seem weird to think, I'm getting on a consultation call with somebody to make sure that I can work with them. But there are going to be situations where when you get on a consultation call with somebody, you're going to realize, like, these are just not necessarily people that I feel comfortable serving. They have a lot of requests that I don't feel comfortable accommodating. And that's okay, right? It's okay to say no to opportunities that don't make sense for us to say yes to. Because a lot of the time, if we say yes to an opportunity just because it's an opportunity, it creates a lot of misalignment in us. And then we're not able to serve as best as we would like to, anyways. So even if we book somebody and we think, okay, yes, like, this is definitely going to be a good situation, it's an opportunity, somebody is paying me for my services, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a really great experience. It may not be a bad experience, but it may be an experience that you wish you maybe didn't have or didn't have to dread leading up to the actual experience. So when we're thinking about consultation calls, they're an opportunity for connection and evaluation between the both of you, right? It's not an interview. It's not a sales call. It's not us starting the conversation with, like, so what package are you interested in? It's us starting the conversation and saying, like, hey, how was your day? What do you do for work? Tell me a little bit about the time that you like to spend together alone, right? So everything should lead them up to the consultation within the marketing, advertising, and like inquiry process, right? So there should be a dotted line between everything that you share online, in your social media, on your website, in your welcome guide, up to and through the inquiry and consultation process. Like I said before, anybody can submit an inquiry, but not everybody will feel good moving forward into a consultation. And we can honor that. That's totally okay. But we just want to know that, right? We just want to know that everything that we're doing in all of our advertising, all of our marketing, everything that we offer to our people as basically like marketing assets, are things that should lead them up to and through the consultation for the people that we are uniquely aligned to serve, for the people that we have designated as our ideal client. So everything should lead them up to the consultation, and you should be booking most of the consultations that you get on, because all the information that your clients or potential clients have already consumed kind of just gives them all the information that they need within that research, evaluation, buying decision process. Um, and then like I said before, the consultation needs to serve as the connection. The consultation is really the heart of them getting to know you and you getting to know them, and trying to decide, are you mutually beneficial essentially to each other? So there are a couple of things that I want us to consider as we move forward with thinking about what people need to know in order to feel good getting onto a consultation with us. And there's two main things, but I think we need to expand on them. So I know I usually give a lot of steps, but these are the two main things that I think are really, really important for us to take hold of. And sometimes the simplicity of stuff is what really needs to be honed in on, what really needs to be refined, right? Simplicity is what scales. And so paying attention to the fact of how simple these concepts are doesn't mean that they're not worth anything. It means that they're simple for a reason. They're simple to understand, and that simplicity will help you scale. And then simplicity also gives you the opportunity for refinement, right? So the two main things that I really want us to consider as we're thinking about what clients need to see, know, feel, as they're evaluating their option of potentially being able to work with us, the first thing is we need to consider the quality and cohesiveness of our portfolio. And I don't mean that by way of, our edits always being exactly the same. Because we are human beings, our editing is not going to be exactly the same for every single session or wedding that we edit. There's also different lighting conditions to consider. There's also different locations to consider. I've even personally noticed that the greens in some areas look different than the greens in others. The greens in the Catskills, the color of the grass in the Catskills is a different color than the grass here in the Hudson Valley. So those greens aren't always going to match in the editing process. And I have to be okay with that. But I have to also know that my consistency isn't only within my edits, but it's also in my client experience. It's also in my posing. It's also in the professionalism of the galleries that I create and curate. But what I really mean here is, for quality and cohesiveness, is if you send a gallery to a potential client and it's a full wedding gallery and they're able to see exactly what you produce from a full wedding gallery, and it does not match the quality of what you share on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, we have a problem. And what happens here, what I have seen happen, is that there are some photographers who really excel in curated environments. They really excel in either very high-end weddings with very curated locations, or very elaborate styled shoots or content days. They really excel in those type of situations, but they don't excel on actual wedding days, or they don't excel in non-luxury environments. And what happens is that if you're sharing consistently these images in your portfolio online, and most of them, the majority of them, are from content days and styled shoots where you're able to take your time, where the lighting is consistent, where you're in a really beautiful location, but somebody asks to see a full wedding gallery and it's not the same type of vibe, right? There's going to be a brokenness of trust that occurs. Even if the clients cannot articulate that, that is exactly what will happen, because they're going to see how beautiful your photos are on Instagram. And then they're going to see the fact that the galleries don't look like the same level of luxury. And it's not because the locations are not luxurious necessarily. It's not because your posing is bad. It's because these things are just completely different, completely separate than what you're actually advertising. And I think a lot of educators out there will say that they want you to share the type of work that you want to call into. However, you also have to consider how likely it is that you will be getting inquiries in your area, in your price bracket, in your location, with your level of experience, that like how likely is it that you are going to get those luxury type of opportunities? You can share very curated style shoot images. There's nothing wrong with that, but you also need to know that if that's all you're sharing, if all you're sharing or the majority of what you're sharing is styled shoot images, and then when somebody asks to see a full gallery, that gallery doesn't match the quality of work as what you're sharing on your Instagram, that brokenness of trust will occur. And you also need to consider as well that if somebody reaches out to you, they want to see your work. Are they going to be a luxury individual? Are they going to be the person that has like a luxury wedding planned in the price bracket that you advertise for? I've noticed that for me, like my clients' weddings are beautiful, they're gorgeous, but they are not luxury level. And I am okay with that because that's how I have priced myself. I do not want to be priced at a very luxurious rate. It's not something that appeals to me. It's something that I have tried before. It's something that I've noticed that if I do that, my market changes, my clients change, and I like the client base that I have now. So I don't price myself out of the client base that I currently have now. But that's something that I have had to know, that I can't be showcasing styled shoot images that show luxury when my prices don't match that, right? Luxury in this area is anywhere upwards of $8,000, $9,000. I'm not at that rate and I'm okay with that, right? There are still high ticket opportunities to be a wedding photographer without being a luxury high ticket wedding photographer. So I just wanted to share that here because I think a lot of us don't think about that. I think a lot of us just think, oh, we can price ourselves however, we can share whatever, and whatever we share is going to call in the type of client that we want, but that's not actually the case. What is actually the case is that we need to consider what we're advertising, where we're getting those images from. Can we trust ourselves to produce the same level of work on an actual wedding day? Our location, where we want to price ourselves for the kind of clients that we want. There's a lot of things to consider when we are thinking about what we're advertising. And if we're consistently advertising images that we've produced, maybe even not only style, like doing a style shoot, but also maybe even as like a second shooter where we have more spaciousness to create differently. If we're only sharing things that are like based on our second shooting work, based on styled shoot and content work, then our galleries are not matching that level of beauty, essentially, that level of luxury that we're showcasing online, there's going to be a brokenness of trust that occurs. That's the first thing I really want us to take hold of, is that we need to make sure that what we're producing and what we're sharing is cohesive across everything that we have to showcase as a marketing asset. And real galleries that we show to potential wedding clients, as much as that's a gallery that we were hired and that we were paid for to produce for another couple, that is also a piece of our marketing. And we need to keep that in mind, right? Like we really need to be doing our best, not only for our current clients, right? Like, of course, we want to create the best gallery possible for our current clients, but we also need to know that there's an additional like add-on benefit. It's like a perk that we can use some of the galleries that we produce for other people to show other potential clients what our quality of work is. And again, if there's no cohesiveness between what we're showing online and then what we actually share in a gallery, people are not going to book us because they're going to be confused. Even if they can't articulate it, they're going to be like, this is a little funny, a little weird. Like things are not looking the way that things appear to look on Instagram, right? So the second thing I want us to talk about is and consider that people actually need to know before they get onto a consultation call with us is, how are we sharing our wedding ethos? How are we sharing what we think about regarding weddings? How are we sharing what is important to us as wedding photographers for potential clients to know, so that when they get on a consultation call, they already have like a general idea of who we are and how we serve because of the way that we think, because of our heart posture. And what I see sometimes that can be refined and updated is that a lot of us will share a lot about us, right? There's nothing wrong with sharing a lot about yourself as a wedding photographer, especially if you're able to kind of marry that with the way that you serve. However, if more of your content is more about you than about how you serve and take care of other people, than about the stories that you hold on to in your brain and in your heart from wedding days, if the stuff is more about just you as opposed to what's important to you as a wedding photographer, or how you serve as a wedding photographer, then people are not going to be able to understand. They're not going to be able to connect the dots between how you as a person will take care of them as people on wedding day. Everything that we share online has to have some sort of dotted line to how it's a benefit to the client and potential client. And I see this happen a lot of the time on Instagram, especially where vulnerability and authenticity is very much so like recommended, right? And I recommend that, share what feels good for you to share, but also keep in mind that your Instagram is not your journal. It's not. Your Instagram is not like just for you to put whatever out there whenever, right? Everything that you put on Instagram, especially, and Facebook, and probably TikTok as well, honestly, social media in general, you can be very authentic, but you also need to know everything that you post has to have some sort of benefit and a dotted line to what the client needs to hear in order to feel comfortable moving into an eventual booking process with you. And this is important not only because like we hope that our potential clients are consuming our content prior to getting on a call with us or inquiring with us, but there are people in the social media world, or even people who may have even just checked out your website, that maybe are not going to become potential clients, but they're people that will refer you to potential clients. And so you always want everything that you put out there to be of any sort of benefit to clients and potential clients and people that are going to share you with other people. They need to know how you serve, so that when they give that recommendation to somebody else, they can say, hey, I really like consuming this person's content. I really like what they shared about this particular thing on Instagram. It can't always be asking questions about like what you are Netflix binging. It can't always be sharing about like what you've been eating lately. We need to go a little bit deeper than that. And we also need to understand that everything that we share online really needs to have a dotted line to benefit the client and their understanding of us and how working with us will benefit them. There are many things that you can share on your Instagram, on your website, like little mini moments that will allow people to understand who you are. It doesn't have to be this big whole like monologue of this is what I do, this is how I serve, blah, blah, blah. This is what's important to me. I shared something on my Instagram recently that was just a little moment from a wedding day I photographed back in November. And it's a wedding day that I think about often. It's a moment that I think about often. But the fact that I hold on to that moment as a key moment in my wedding photography like journey and in my season from last year, that teaches people, that shows people that they are, and their wedding days are just as important to me as they are to them. Right. And I think that's something that we are service providers, and we're artists, but people also need to know that they're going to be taken care of as individuals and not just kind of put through a booking process, taken money from, and then just hoping that that person shows up on the wedding day, right? Or just hoping that they'll have a connection with them at some point. Everything that you put out on social media and on your website should encourage a sense of connection. And so clients need to feel that sense of connection, feel that resonance between who you are and what's important to you and who they are and what's important to them before they even get on a consultation call. And you can use so many things to bring them to that point, right? Like it's not just social media, it's also what you share on your website, and it's also what you share like in copy on your website. That's something that I really want to hone in on too, is that pictures are worth 1,000 words. You can have really beautiful pictures, but like if your website is really lacking some significant copy about how you serve, about what's important to you as a wedding photographer, if you're missing out on this copy, people aren't going to understand it and you're going to have a disconnect. You're going to have a disconnect. You'll probably get less inquiries and you will get less bookings because you haven't taken the time to articulate what's important to you or little stories that are important to you on your website and on your social media. And that's also the case with your welcome guide. When people inquire, what do you send them? Is it just pricing? If it's just pricing, you're going to lose people because people need to be kind of like led through the journey of what it's like to work with you and why that's a benefit to them. And anybody will pay the money that they need to pay once they feel that sense of connection. Of course, there are going to be situations where people are not going to feel like they can stretch their budget a little bit to be able to work with you. That's okay. That's their choice. But if you're using your content, everything that you share, website, welcome guide, social media, if you're using all of that to really lead people through the connection process with you, if they have wiggle room, they will find it, right? Or even if they don't think they have wiggle room, a lot of the time they will find it. I can't tell you how many times I have had a client inquire with me at a lower budget and then they book me at a significantly higher budget. And it's because they have felt that sense of care and connection, not only through the inquiry process, not only through the consultation process, but also leading up to that process, right? Because people need to be able to connect the dots in order to feel safe and secure within the booking process. And that's why it's important that everything that we share leads them to and through that sense of connection and that sense of trust and that sense of security. Because if they don't, we'll lose them because there will be that brokenness of trust. And that's why going back to the portfolio piece, that's why that's just as important as well, right? The sense of connection is extremely important. And the sense of a cohesive portfolio is also very, very, very important. Now, people are going to, like, as we're in this like recession economy situation and inflation is like a thing, people are going to consider the value that we bring to the table in a much more like heavy way, I guess is the right way to put it. Like they're going to put more emphasis on what we bring to the table as wedding photographers than they may have over the past couple of years, right? We're not able to just really skate by anymore. We're not able to just put photos out there and hope that people book us. We really need to put some intentionality around what we're sharing online, around how we're sharing online, around the types of connections that we build on these consultation calls. And this is how you will show your value and your worth. I think it's very easy in economic like times like this for us to be like, well, people don't understand why my pricing is what my pricing is, or people don't understand that like I'm also experiencing inflation as a business owner. Like, yes, that's annoying. Like we can all acknowledge that that's annoying. It can feel like very burdensome that sometimes some clients will reach out to us and will say, you know, we just can't make this work with inflation. And we're thinking, well, we can't make your budget work with our inflation, right? As business owners. But there's also something here too, where when this happens, we kind of tend to fall into like prove it energy of like, this is why I have to do these things. This is why I have to charge these rates. This is why like I have to value myself and my work in this particular type of way. But we don't need to harp on those things. If we have showcased how we serve, what's important to us, that element of connection, if we showcased a cohesive marketing portfolio that kind of flows through into actual galleries, this is not something that we really need to worry about, honestly. It's not something where we need to be like, well, people aren't valuing me and I need to prove my worth and I need to share my prices and this is why it's this much money. People know that things cost money and people will find the money to pay for them if they see the value. And the way that they see the value is this cohesiveness of imagery and cohesiveness of connection, right? So that's the biggest thing, is that there has to be this through line that clients have to feel, they have to acknowledge, they have to know, right? This through line of like the images that are showcased on our portfolio online match the images that we showcase in actual galleries. There has to be this through line of the connection that we share about on our Instagram, the connection that we share about on our website, the connection that we share about in our welcome guide, the connection that we actually create on a consultation call. So that's everything that I want to share with you today. I hope it was helpful. If you have questions, always feel free to DM me. And thank you so much for being here.